The blockade wasn't supposed to fire on a hospital habitat. Yet 16 gold-latticed cruisers ringed Kite's nest, their hull filigree glinting like wedding bands under a cold star. On the bridge of TFS First Principles, Captain Maya Rios watched her thermal board blossom. The Mandate cruisers were spooling their Harmony lances, polite words for beams that boiled oceans. The nest's beacons spluttered between jamming bursts, life support failing, pediatric ward losing pressure. "Jammers are painting every channel," said T.O. Klein at comms, jaw tight. "They are broadcasting Article 9, internal compliance action, foreign ships keep clear. Maritime law in space," Maya murmured. "Then we go older than space." She signaled Ibrahim Cade, her Zoe, "Light the boilers." Una Patel, chief engineer, didn't blink, radiators unfolded, incandescent fans painting the void in blue-white pennants. T.O. loaded the first message, not in radio but in heat. A string of long and short spikes in the ship's thermal wake, Morse, the rescue code used on Earth's seas when radios died. A legal fiction, perhaps, but law starts as fiction made real by courage. Across the ring, Mandate arrays ticked. Their doctrine trained them to parse harmonics, not heartbeat stories. Our heat songs slipped through, recognized by 43 different minor species who had once traded with humans and learned our stubborn old habits. Within minutes, civilian tugs from the neighboring markets began to vector toward the nest, draped in white running lights. A rescue was no longer just a ship, it was a procession. "Commodore Tulen is calling," T.O. said. "Visual." The Mandate flag officer appeared, skin lacquered, voice clear as glass. "Human vessel, you are trespassing in a harmonization zone. Withdraw, the habitat is being corrected." "Corrected," Maya repeated. "We're declaring a search and rescue corridor under the law of help. We will not fire unless fired upon. We are escorting ambulances." Tulen's eyes flicked, listening to some counsel in her ear. "There is no such law here." "There is now," Maya said, and fed him the heat song again, amplified in the radiators like the bell of a lighthouse. A simple human trick, when tyrants own the airwaves, make the air itself speak. History teaches odd bravery. At Dunkirk, fishing boats made a navy. At Midway, codebreakers turned scraps into victory. Our trick was smaller, old code, bright lights, and enough audacity to call it legal. Virtue ethics argues you become what you repeatedly do. We repeatedly help. The first salvo lanced the void, a shimmering thread that smelled of ozone to our sensors. Una's laminar shield coughed, then sang as field lines curled the beam across our bow, bleeding energy into auroras we could almost taste. "Minor ablation on plate C," she reported. "We can take 10 more comfortably." "Make it look like we can take 2, Maya said. T.O. damped the glow, letting our nose darken a shade too far. The Mandate thought in theater. We handed them a script they'd misread. "Gates ready," Ibrahim said. On screen, our courier drones swarmed, painted bright white with red crosses, stuffed with med gel and pressure tents. They would punch through the corridor, magnetized to the nest's skin, and weld mouths over bleeding hull. "Open the lane," Meyer ordered. First Principles yawed, presenting the broad plate of our deflectors to the ring's heaviest cruiser. Una split the shield into petals, each petal taking a share of the lance, refracting the rest into a halo none of their models had seen. The civilian tugs slid in behind us, matching our wake, our heat song now their heat song. T.O. hissed. "Mandate psyops ramping. They're transmitting a harmonics cascade, induced panic in the alpha bands. If you grew up on a Mandate world, your chest would tighten and you'd want to obey." "We did not," Maya said. "Pipe jazz." T.O. grinned, thumbed a file named Yardbird, and the ship filled with warm brass. Not just for mood, threaded through the syncopation was a one-time pad keyed to the refugees' old radio dramas. You cannot be coerced by a song if yours is louder inside. "Ambulance drones away," Ibrahim called. White darts leapt, streaking toward the nest's torn seams. Commodore Tulen's voice cut back. "This is your last warning. The habitat will be scuttled if interference continues." On the nest's rim, charges flickered to life, scuttling bolts meant to clean, non-compliant communities. We could mirror their beam again, but the refracted wash would slough across the habitat's fragile skins. Preserve the corridor and we doom the wards, drop the shield and we invite the lance. Maya's fingers hovered above the command seal. Una, she said softly, can you bend a weapon without breaking a promise? I can try something, Una replied, but it will hurt. The next lance brightened and we committed into an equation where rescue and restraint might not both survive. We didn't shoot first. That was doctrine, but doctrine is not dogma. It is a compass you keep checking while the storm redraws the map. Una's hurt was a shield inversion. She flipped laminar layers to make our deflectors a river eddy, sliding the incoming lance along a path that grazed our hull and bled into a null pocket we stitched with drones. It shaved paint, rattled teeth, and spared the nest by meters. Hull temp spiked, Una warned. We'll need to vent soon. Do it, Maya said, superheated panels erized. Our vent cloud blossomed like a sail and by design wrote another message in steam physics cursive. Tugs, port approach. Children first. T.O.'s board lit with dozens of minor species replies. Keshan barge captains, 3 Ithri healer pods, a Tridax fire tug boasting about her ancient pumps. The corridor was becoming a coalition. Found family not by blood but by choice. Captain Dr. Wen Liang, our ethicist chaplain, spoke from sickbay, voice calm. I'm patching through a Kesh leader. She's with the ward you saved from decompressing. The Kesh appeared, feathered collar askew, eyes raw. Your drones sing, she whispered. Our children cling to them like barnacles. Commodore Tulan says to surrender and be redeemed. What does redemption mean in your tongue? It means you were worth saving before you changed, Wen said gently. It means you belong without a test. Sometimes philosophy must be short enough to carry through fire. Just war theory names proportionality and non-combatant immunity as anchors. In practice, that meant we would take bruises to give others a corridor. Ibrahim leaned in. Mandate is spooling a compliance barge. If it docks, they'll flood the nest with harmonic fog, forced euphoria, then list cleansing. How long? Meyer asked. 6 minutes. T.O. cued a narrowcast to the barge's junior officers, young, still soft around the eyes. The packet we sent held 2 things, footage from our drones stitching children into warm tents and a legal argument older than their empire, the mariner's duty to render aid, with cases from Earth's 19th century through Luna's ice convoys. Some of those officers had parents who taught them fairy tales about honor. We gambled that fairy tales survive indoctrination. Barge speed down 10%, Ibrahim said. Somebody hesitated. Tulan did not. Human captain, she said. I recognize genius in your engineering. Do not waste it on criminals. Withdraw and we will spare half the nest. Not a bargain I can sign, Maya replied. Spare all and we talk. Behind Tulan's mask, a flicker, frustration, curiosity, maybe fear. Power is accustomed to easy obedience. Our refusal felt like speaking heresy in a temple. Una's voice cut in. Corridor integrity falling. I can hold if I steal power from. She stopped because she knew the choice was ugly. Life support, Meyer asked. Our own, Una said. Crew decks go dim, cold air, no jazz. T.O. smirked without humor. I've got a trumpet in my head now, I can hum. Do it, Maya said. Light bled from the bridge, replaced by the workman glow of emergency strips. In the dark, we felt larger, like a tug in a gale, everything rattling but the heart. Captain, Wen warned. Panic spikes in the nest. They hear scuttle charges arming. T.O., Maya said, do the thing your grandmother taught you. He grinned properly this time. T.O. Klein's grandmother had been a hobbyist ham operator in the bad years on Earth, when storms chewed antennas and neighbors found each other by static. He keyed the wideband and began to tell a story, voice steady, pacing perfect. A tale of a boy riding a city bus through a blackout. How riders lit the aisle with phones, how the driver took roll by nickname. The story threaded instructions, line up to the white lights. Hand the baby to the door. If you cannot walk, wave the thermal blanket. Psyops hates specificity, it prefers fog. A human voice naming each step is anti-fog. Mandate lances paused, then punched again. Una folded the beam's skirt, our hull screamed. We're in the red, she said. If they chain two more, I lose the eddy and we scorch the nest. Then we must change the game, Wen said softly. Virtue demands courage, but prudence demands invention. How did Midway change the game? Meyer asked aloud, knowing Ibrahim would catch it. By striking carriers, not planes, he said. Hit what launches the harm. Target origin of scuttle control, Meyer ordered. We would not fire on the cruisers. We would peel the ignition relay off the habitat's rim like a tick. Tio, warn the nest. Ibrahim, compute a cut that won't ring the bells. Trajectory plotted, he said. Window in 3-2. Fire the knife, Maya said. Our only shot in 2 hours wasn't a beam at all. It was a swarm of microbots in a filament, riding the heat song, invisible to mandate harmonics. They kissed the relay, drank its charge, and died happy. On Tulan's board, the scuttle icon went dark. Who gave you that authority? She whispered, more to herself than to us. The same storm that gave lifeboats right of way, Maya said. We merely remembered. Alarms rolled over us, mandate reinforcements bending the ring into an iron halo. New tonnage, Ibrahim said. Flagship class. If they anchor, we can't keep the lane open without breaking our promise. On the nest, a baby wailed into Tio's channel, loud and real. The corridor held, but the next decision would decide whether this was a daring rescue or the start of a war no one wanted. The Mandate flagship slid into position like a cathedral, its prow a sermon in gold leaf. Commodore Tulan's voice receded. A new baritone arrived, cold and ceremonial. This is Prefect Sar Veylan. By authority of the Auric Mandate, all unauthorized aid ceases. The habitat is forfeited. Prepare for harmonization. Harmonization meant erasure. You don't harmonize the off-key, you remove them from the choir. Tio, Maya said. Patch me to their bridge, but not the microphones, their room. Tio hunted spectral crumbs, found a leak in a status cam, and poured it into our map. We saw officers in lacquered collars, a choir boy of a lieutenant blinking too often, a tactical chief with the posture of a man who read too much poetry in school to be fully cruel. Humans tell stories about faces. We were looking for a story we could live with. Una, Maya said, how many minutes can you hold this eddy if I ask you for 4 more miracles? 1 miracle per minute, Una said dryly. At 5, I invoice God. Invoice Earth, Tio muttered, when Liang's voice floated up. Captain, before you cut, let me speak to their conscience, if they have one. Maya nodded. Tio threaded Wen into the thinest crack in their comms, not a formal channel, but the acoustic spill that carried footfalls and throat clears. Wen spoke softly, in Old High Mandate, the dialect of lullabies. Prefect Veylan, do you remember your first fire drill, how the teacher counted and you were proud to be last out because you held the door? You are holding a door now. Silence, then a huff, the tactical chief perhaps. The lieutenant blinked faster. Veylan's baritone did not crack, it hardened. Morality theater, he said. Proceed. Meyer exhaled. Then we cut launchers. She pointed to Ibrahim's overlay. Those 3 cruisers seed the harmonics and cue the lances. If we shadow them, make them bleed heat, they'll fall out without exploding. Shadow with what? Ibrahim asked. Barn swallows, Una said, already pulling up the file. We had 600 mining drones intended to skim ore from comets. Una had taught them a game last year, chasing heat wakes the way Earth swallows chase summer storms. She slaved them to the 3 cruisers' radiators. In seconds, the drones were a cloud of playful gnats, wicking heat, forcing reactor scrams. No shots, no screams, just engines that refused to stay in tune. Cruiser 1 offline, Ibrahim said. 2 struggling, 3 angry. Angry meant unpredictable. The 3rd cruiser surged, rolled, and lit an improvised lance that sliced the edge of our corridor. The halo rolled. A civilian tug shuddered, its pilot, Tridax, bright carapaced and brave, wobbled, corrected, and sang back to us in perfect Morse. Still here. Keep the lane. We owed that pilot more than gratitude. Tio, Maya said, flag that tug for priority, evac slots forever. Logged, he said, voice thick. The ship felt smaller for a breath, the way rooms do at funerals and weddings. When, quiet until now, murmured, proportionality allows disabling engines, it forbids vengeance. We're threading that needle, Maya said. Ibrahim, can we kiss the flagship's beam spine without hurting the choir? I can give you a 30-second window, he said. After that, they adapt. Then we take 30. This time our knife was a whisper at 20 microns, a filament that bridged the flagship's spine and tickled the beam's phase coils. It didn't break the lance, it made it honest. When the flagship fired, the energy met itself, shook like a bell, and ate the capacitors Veylan needed to preach. Lights dimmed across the cathedral. "Prefect," Tulan said on their side, voice audible to us in the chaos, "we are losing command of the perimeter. The civilians are escaping." Veylan did not curse. He considered, then chose escalation. "Deploy null C." Ibrahim swore softly. "They're bringing in a null writ." Null writs were code instead of weapons, colonial law etched into firmware. When they touched a system that obeyed mandate standards, it chose obedience first. On a nest built by conquered hands, null would quiet doors, locks, life support without a sound. "Can we firewall them?" Tio asked himself as much as anyone. "Not the nest," Una said. "It speaks their tongue. We need a translator with a better accent." Wen looked at Maya. "Just war theory also asks right authority. We have no charter here except the one the suffering gave us." He touched the console. "Let me try a sermon." "Short one," Maya said. He nodded. "Virtue is a habit. Practice courage now and you will be brave later. Practice cruelty now and you will crave it later." He looked up. Tio opened the public channel. Tio inhaled and did. Wen spoke to everyone. To the Kesh mothers, to the Tridax pilot, to mandate lieutenants with soft eyes. He spoke about Earth civil rights marchers and the way logistics won dignity. How water, medics, and songs carried a movement across bridges. "Whoever you are," he said, "take one step. If you carry a child, pass them forward. If you hold a key, open a door. If you wield a weapon, lower it 1 degree. Mandate doctrine does not plan for 1 degree. Captain," Ibrahim said, surprise bleeding into his voice. "Compliance barge is cutting thrust. On our scope, the barge's helm dipped." The lieutenant with fast blinks made his choice. His hand landed on a manual override like he'd practiced in private for years. Veylan noticed. His next move was predictable and terrible. Authorize sterilization of the refugee moon. The display chilled. The moon wasn't part of Kite's nest, not directly. It held the oldest families, the ones who refused implants. Tulan's face returned, as if she needed us to see her watching. "Captain Rios," she said, "if you keep the lane open, we will erase the moon. History says Dunkirk mattered because Britain chose rescue over pride. We faced an uglier mirror, rescue here and we doom there, or fold and trust a prefect who had earned none." "Plot me a third option," Maya said, voice low and deadly calm. "Now." "No single ship can be in 2 places," Ibrahim said, already breaking his own rule with a dozen workarounds. "But a fleet doesn't have to be made of hulls." "Say it," Maya urged. "Make a fleet out of promises," he said. "We stitch every civilian tug, every market skiff, every healer pod into a shield, an EM sail lattice. We project a ghost of us over the moon while our body guards the lane." Una's grin was feral. "I can teach tugs to sing in phase. It'll be ugly and bright." Tio pinged the corridor. "All ships, this is first principles. If you can spare a panel, a coil, a prayer, bring it. We're building a wall of light." They came. The Tridax fire tug pushed forward, surrendering pumps to power. The Ithri healers unfurled translucent membranes. Kesh barges bared their backs like turtles. We sent them a pattern in color and tempo, 5 notes in blue, red, purple, yellow, white, easy for claws, tentacles, and human hands alike. The lattice formed like stained glass across the black, a cathedral we chose together. "Prefect Veylan is splitting fire," Ibrahim said. "Half to the corridor, half to the moon." "Give me the chorus," Una said. On her mark, the lattice sang. Not metaphorically. Coils actually vibrated, phase locking into a chord that pushed back. The first lance hit and skittered, scattering in petals. Over the moon, our ghost, built from stolen reflections and EM echo, presented a target so convincing that mandate targeting solved for the wrong thing. The real surface received kisses of light, not knives. "Null writ propagating," Tio warned. On the moon, old doors paused, listening for the mandate's familiar tyrant tone. "Time for open culture," Una said, fingers flying. She pushed a counter it built from free code Earth had gifted to a dozen species. It didn't block the mandate, it offered choice. When systems woke, they saw two authorities and remembered the first law of any hearth. You obey the hand that feeds you gently. Locks stayed open. Pumps kept pumping. Hospitals hummed. Captain, Wen said, Kesh elders request permission to broadcast a lullaby. They believe their children will breathe easier if they hear home. Permission granted, Maya said, throat thick. The lullaby braided with our cord. Even Valan's sensors saw the math change. Morale is not a number you can measure with a voltmeter, but it bends outcomes just the same. Tulan reappeared. The lacquer on her voice had cracked. You cannot hold both, she said, not taunting, just true. No, Maya admitted. But we can hold long enough. How many long enoughs until your hull gives? Tulan asked. As many as the tugs will lend us, Maya replied. She let Tulan see our bridge, dim, breath frosting, crew steady. Hope is infectious when it looks like work. Valan tired of theater. Cease this farce, he snapped. Deploy the choir. New icons bloomed, drones tuned to sing despair to convince lungs that air was ash. Tio, Maya said, Navajo lesson. He nodded, throat working. In World War Roman II, the U.S. used Navajo code talkers, language as armor. We'll borrow the principle, not the tongue. He keyed channels across species lines, handing each group a phrase from their grandmother's kitchen, recipes, jokes, blessings. When the choir sang despair, kitchen sang back. Against a dirge, we set a meal. Our lattice trembled. Two tugs fell out, smoking. The Tridax pilot, hero of Part 2, hit the limit of her pumps and still held. You owe me a new gasket, she tapped in Morse. Earth will send a crate, Tio replied. Ibrahim ran the clock. Evac complete at the nest in 4 minutes, he said. Moon needs 6. We'll give them 6, Maya said, even if it costs. Alarms flared like flares should. Plate F failed. Una swore, soft and almost tender, as if cursing a friend. I can bridge, but I need a source, something we can't afford to lose. Say it, Maya pressed. Skip thread charge, Una said, the fuel of our escape. If we spend it, we can't outrun a new fleet. Wen's eyes were gentle. Courage now, prudence later. Maya touched the command seal. Burn the thread. The ship shuddered as stored probability poured into the lattice. For a breath, the corridor gleamed like noon on water. Valan's lances faltered. Over the moon, our ghost became a mirror, showing mandate drones their own hot faces, sending them to chase phantoms. Evac at the nest complete, Ibrahim said. Moon at 2 minutes. Tulan's image sharpened. She had removed the collar that declared rank. Prefect, she said behind her own teeth. We can withdraw and count the living, or we can die pretty. Valan stared at the mirror we held up to him, a cathedral of gold, dimmed, a corridor of junk and love bright. He was not a cartoon. He had loved a song once. He closed his eyes. All mandate vessels, he said, voice suddenly human, retreat to perimeter, record that I ordered it. The choir hushed, lances cooled, the halo broke. We didn't cheer, we breathed. In the dark, breath makes its own music. The moon evac complete, Ibrahim said, and let himself smile. Una sagged. Skip thread gone, we can't jump, we'll have to limp. Then we limp, Maya said. Signals mark this place on every chart, the corridor we declared, the wall we built, the enemy we tried to understand. Tio nodded, fingers shaking as he typed a message to 1,000 kitchens. Wen Liang closed his eyes and offered a small prayer to no god in particular. May we keep becoming what we practice. Somewhere beyond the halo, new signatures stirred, politics moving to fill the quiet after courage. Part of the galaxy would hate what we'd done. Part would ask for a corridor of their own. Captain, Ibrahim said softly, we've started something. Maya looked at the lattice, still glowing in 5 stubborn colors. Good, she said. Let's finish it. We limped toward the market ring of Astor Gate, a caravan of exhausted ships glittering like a parade after the band had packed up. The corridor lattice unraveled into strings of patched coils and borrowed panels. Tugs towed tugs. Healer pods slept for the first time in a day. Without skip thread, first principles felt heavy, honest, like a workboat after a storm. Signal from Mandate Commodore Tulan, Tio said. Formally requesting parley on Astor Gates Common. He hesitated. And an informal request, bring blankets. We docked to fanfare and suspicion. Traders cheered us. Mandate agents watched through mirrored visors. Prefect Sar Velan walked alone up the gangway, unarmed, collar stripped. He looked smaller without gold, like anyone burned by his own certainty, when Liang met him at the lock with 2 cups of broth. You came knowing your own could seize you, Wen said. Someone must be last through the fire door. Velan answered, voice rough. I learned that today watching a Tridax steer through knives. Tulen arrived moments later, collar removed but spine unbowed. The inquest travels behind me, she said. A curial legate will weigh treasonous restraint. They will make an example, of whom depends on the story we write in the next hour. Then we write it wide, Maya said. On the common, everyone hears. The Astor Gate Common was a bowl of glass and rope and prayer flags. We laid out a thin table, not to elevate anyone but to hold tea and contracts. The Kesh elders came wrapped in embroidered pressure cloths. The Tridax pilot, shell scuffed, crest singed, arrived to applause she pretended not to hear. Ithri healers swayed, their gill plumes breathing market spice. Our crew sat among them, not above. Wen spoke first. We propose the corridor compact, an accord that recognizes civilian rescue lanes in contested space. A lane is not a sovereign claim, it is a promise. Ships flying the 5 colors, blue, red, purple, yellow, white, agree to render aid, refuse first strike, and testify publicly about abuses. No empire may close a lane without cause judged by a mixed commission. Law without an empire, a mandate envoy scoffed. Law with neighbors, Ibrahim said. We have those. Tulan studied the flag we'd painted on a panel, 5 bands, bright and stubborn. If I sign, I forfeit my career, she said, a statement, not a plea. If you don't, the Tridax pilot tapped out in a translator band that clicked like rain on tin, you forfeit us. Velan's gaze fell on the children playing behind the vendors, chasing an Ithri helium balloon that squeaked like a moon. I ordered a retreat, he said to the crowd. Record that I did it for duty or record that courage is catching. Either is true. Before signatures could dry, the curial inquest arrived, thrice-blessed legate in white glass, guard drones humming law like bees. All mandate officers present, she intoned, submit for review, foreign agitators will disperse. Our accord is public, Wen replied pleasantly. You can witness. You mistake observation for consent, the legate said. Prefect Velan, Commodore Tulen in custody. The guard drones toothed forward. Tio's panel chirped. He'd already laced the common with a polite request in 100 tongues, stand and interpose. Dozens did, not with weapons, but with bodies and badges and contracts. The inquest's drones mapped a maze of bystanders and faltered. Stand down your mob, the legate hissed. It isn't a mob, Maya said. It's a line at a fire door. Politics is logistics with banners. We had built bathrooms, charging mats, med tents, and a corner for toddlers to draw ships with 5 bright stripes. The inquest built for theater had brought only theater. That mismatch mattered. The legate recalibrated. Null writ, she said softly. We all felt it, doors slackening, lights dimming, air growing shy. Astor Gate was old and carried mandate firmware in its bones. Systems listened for an old song and heard it. Counter it away, Una said through gritted teeth, pushing our open code across the commons like a breeze. But they've seeded a worm in the healer's stacks. Ithri plumes trembled. Our pods are sleeping, their speaker said, voice like water and bells. Patience inside. A saboteur then here now in the common we'd made safe. Tio's board painted a ghost, a courier with a clean badge and dirty eyes moving through tents, beacon chirping the inquest's call sign. Permission to pursue? Ibrahim asked. Pursue, Maya said, but bring back a testimony, not a corpse. We fanned through the ropes and flags. The suspect threaded the healer tents toward a maintenance shaft, a black tooth in the glass. Una hissed. Below that shaft lay the market's central circulator. A bomb there would drop pressure by half across the ring. He turned once, saw the quilt of people, saw the 5 colors, and smirked with the half-education of a zealot. When Liang's voice floated across the common in old high mandate. Do not make a sacrament of cruelty, he said. Make a habit of restraint. The courier ran anyway, and the shaft swallowed him. A beat later, Tio felt the ping of a primed charge and the sick gravity of an answer we hadn't yet invented. Alarms bit like mosquitoes, tiny, numerous. Infuriating, Una's palms were already slick with code. He nested charges on the circulator's throttle and seeded a cascade in the healer pod's thermostats. If the ring drops pressure, their patients seize before they can wake. Paths? Meyer asked. 3, Ibrahim answered. Cut power to the ring and suffocate the market. Let the worm run and watch patients freeze, or vent the common to space to overpressure the circulator and blow the bomb backward. Not the common, Tio said reflexively, eyes on the toddlers with crayons. Not the patients, Wen murmured, eyes closed, counting the invisible as if counting beads. Then a fourth path, Maya said. Teach the ring to breathe like a diaphragm, Una. She blinked, then grinned. Engineers love metaphors that map to math. We can stagger pump cadence like a singer under load. Drop here, swell there. But I need hands on a dozen manual valves owned by a dozen stubborn vendors. Stubborn is our favorite flavor, Ibrahim said, already sprinting. We split. Tridac's carapace clacked at valve B. Kesh elders wrapped feathers around valve G. A human kid who'd learned plumbing on Luna grabbed valve J like a game joystick. Tio sang counts, 2, 3, breathe. And the ring obeyed. Pressure dipped, swelled, carried across ribs and spines. The circulator whined as the surge reached it not as a punch but as a syncopation. The bomb's leaf switch clicked, undecided, then settled wrong for its maker. It half-fired, twisted by our offbeat, and ate itself with a petulant pop. Shards tinkled harmlessly in the shaft like sleet. Thermostats? Maya called. Still locked, Una said. The worm is humming lullabies and the pods believe them. Can we teach them a new song? Wen asked. Una's fingers paused. Pods have acoustic fallbacks for ithry emergencies. If we hit the right chord, we can nudge a manual wake. Wen's voice warmed. The Kesh lullaby from Part 4 is in D Aeolian. The ithry prayer uses pentatonic intervals over a low B drone. If we settle on a common tone, B, and braid them. Compose it, Maya said. When hummed, Tio caught it, smoothed it, piped it through the commons. The market, dozens of species, joined, not tuneful but true. The pods listened, recognized a care they were built to obey, and woke. Patients gasped and rolled eyes and cried. Ithry healers folded around them like surf over stones. Security hauled the courier from a side, ducked, coughing, arm cut, face incredulous that he was alive among those he'd meant to kill. He wore the silver thread of the shroud choir under his collar, the mandate's special service for dirges and lies. The inquest legate's mask barely hid annoyance. A lone fanatic, she said smoothly. We grieve his misuse of law. His badge pings your office, Tio said, throwing a ghost of data across the common. His worm carried your seal. If grief is real, legate, break your own sigil. The legate's drones reeled, confused by the way we made the public square a court. You lack standing, she said. We will try him under Ordinance 20. Ordinance 20 forbids public testimony, Wen replied. We prefer sunlight. Sunlight burns, she said. So does silence. The Tridac's pilot clicked and the crowd's temperature changed. We granted the courier water, a patch for his arm, and a seat. No cage, no humiliation. He looked at the cup like it was a trick. You should hate me, he said to Wen, voice small. Hate is a habit, Wen said. We try to practice other ones. The courier spoke in fits. He was not brilliant nor monstrous. He was a clerk who wanted to be brave and mistook cruelty for courage. They told me if I seeded the worm, I'd earn a collar, he whispered. They said your corridors would drown us, that your songs were knives. Songs can be knives, Wen said. We chose bandages. The inquest began to withdraw, no appetite for a court it did not stage, when Tio's panel sobbed with a new tone. Guard jump, he said. Heavy, auric guard, black canticle in tow. The guard arrived like a cord held too long, noble, numb, inevitable. Their commander, Chancellor Judge Rue Mark, spoke in a voice you could sand tables with. By curial writ, I assume jurisdiction. Foreign agitators are to be detained, mandate officers to be judged. Tulan stood. "Judge Mark," she said, "I stipulate to facts on the record. Prefect Valen ordered withdrawal to protect civilians. I concurred. If that is treason, try me first." Valen faced the crowd. "I ordered retreat because I saw a better law enacted." The judge's eyes were flint. "Your confessions will be useful." He flicked 2 fingers. Choir in tone, black canticle drones opened their throats, harmonics slid like oil into ears, souring breath, dimming light. Children whimpered, healers' hands trembled. Our coalition, so bright a moment before, seemed suddenly thin as paper in rain. "Shields?" Meyer asked. "Only the old ones." Una said, "Drums, work, names." "Then we lean on what never updates," Maya said, closing her eyes to hear a beat older than empires. "We started with hands. You cannot jam a palm against your thigh. T.O. killed the PA and opened the market to itself. Someone with a copper pan made it a drum. Ithri gill plumes flared in time, turning breath into bass. The Kesh stamped their feathered anklets. Tridax shells clicked like rain on tin roofs. Our crew laid wrenches on crates and found 4/4. Black Canticle slid across the commons seeking resonance and found instead a city block remembering how to walk through a march. Keep heart rates under the arrhythmia threshold. When coached, voice a metronome. If you feel dizzy, breathe on the 2. The judge's drones wavered. Despair prefers soloists. The beat made us plural. Guardian lances spooling. Ibrahim warned. They will not just sing. "Then we speak," Maya said. "Put us on every band." T.O. threw our tired faces at the sky. Maya kept it simple. "You can arrest us tomorrow," she told the judge, "and the day after. Today we ask for right authority. Convene a civic jury, 1 mandate, 1 human, 1 from each species who held the corridor. Try us in the open. If we lose, we serve. If we win, you sign the compact and leave corridors alone." The judge sneered. "You think law is a market stall?" "No," Maya said. "We think law is shared chores." Valen stepped forward, collarless, but still very much an officer. "Chancellor Judge, I testify. I ordered retreat to protect non-combatants. I asked to be tried with them, not above." Tulen nodded. "I concur." The judge's jaw tightened. Authoritarians hate surprises of the conscience. He gestured, and the guards' beam spines opened like choir books. "Enough theater. Disable their transmitters. Break the beat." "Barn swallows?" Meyer asked. "Already flying," Una said. Mining drones swarmed radiators, wicked heat, and turned guard crescendos into coughs. We mirrored their beam spines with whisper filament again, forcing capacitors to argue with themselves. The guard compensated. Their engineers were not fools. They pivoted to kinetics, a flock of smart flechettes meant to tenderize crowds. "Lattice!" Ibrahim shouted. The corridor compact moved like a muscle we'd only just learned we had. Tugs pushed panels up. Healer membranes flared. The 5 colors stitched into a canopy that caught flechettes like hail in a trampoline. Some tore, some held. The Tridax pilot drove her battered tug into a knot where the lattice sagged, nose first, pumps flaming. "Don't you dare fall," she tapped to T.O. and wedged her hull like a rib shoved under a collapsing wall. Her core's red lining, Una whispered. "She knows," Maya said. When Liang stood on a crate and did something no training suggested, he confessed to fear. "I am shaking," he said plainly. "I want to run, but courage is not a feeling. It is a habit of choosing the neighbor." He turned to the judge, to the cameras, to those watching from sofas and barracks. "We choose the neighbor." A black canticle faltered in the face of the oldest counterpsalm, people choosing each other, yet the guard pressed. Their reserve wing knifed toward the healer's bays, a cut the lattice could not catch. Una swore. "I don't have the copper." "Then steal some," Maya said. Una's eyes lit. "From us." She cannibalized first principles mid-fight. Plate F was already gone. Now she stripped Plate E, raided our kitchen's induction coils, and taught our radiators to harmonize with borrowed junk. Our ship groaned, ribs bare as a poem. The improvised field kissed the reserve wing just shy of violence, robbing their aim of dignity, not of life. "Transmission uplink," T.O. yelped. "Guard trying to jam the jury call." "Give it to kitchens," Maya said. "If law must be baked, let ovens hum." Across the ring, ovens and kettles and forge beds became routers, repeating the call to jury. People leaned out of windows and said their names. Risha, Kesh, present. How, human, present. Kel of the Tridax, present. The jury assembled not in a marble hall, but in the messy grace of a market. The judge could have ordered a slaughter. He had the tonnage. He could have named it order. Instead, seeing Valan and Tulan standing in the crowd they had nearly burned, seeing a battered tug hold a sky with its own back, seeing a market drum shame a chorus of machines. He hesitated. There is a moment in some men when the story they told about themselves cracks. He masked it well, but crack it did. "Hold fire," he said, as if he'd meant to all along. "I will convene your farce." A cheer rippled and cut off when the Tridax pilot's engines coughed blood-colored smoke. "Core breach," Una said softly. "She needs a tow now or she will die holding us up." We had no skip thread. Our plates were teeth in a smile too wide. Every tow line was already tied. Choices, always choices. "Take us off the board," Maya said. "All power to the tether, we hold her instead." "Captain," Ibrahim started. "We can be the rib," Maya said simply. First principles lights died. We felt weight the way guilt feels, heavy and necessary. The tether sang. The tug did not fall. Above, the guard watched us go dim, and someone, either a coward or a saint, made a choice that would end the day. We expected lances. We got lanterns. Guard ships powered down in sequence, one after another, their gold going from glare to candlelight. The judge's voice came back smaller, human-shaped. "Proceed," he said to the jury we'd built from kettles and courage. The jury spoke in turns, awkward, precise, often beautiful. The Kesh elder described children clinging to white drones like barnacles to a hull. An Ithri nurse explained how the lullaby braided with prayer to wake the pods. A human vendor, grease on his sleeves, described choosing a valve over profit. Valan admitted he had believed power made right until right stood in his way and didn't move. Tulan, careful as a surgeon, traced the line between doctrine and decency and placed her weight on the latter. When it was Maya's turn, she did not recite a preamble. "We built a corridor," she said simply. "It is a thing made of time and hands. We ask you to keep making it after we leave." When closed with a historian's trick. "Dunkirk was not a victory," he said, "but it made victory possible later. Midway was not inevitable, it was prepared by quiet math. The civil rights marches did not pass because speeches were pretty. They passed because people fed each other while walking. You face a choice like that, choose the neighbor and law will catch up." The judge asked the only good question he had left. "And if I sign, what becomes of me?" "You become what you practice," Wen said. "Start now." The guard officers, some with lacquered collars, some with laundry still clipped to their bunks, watched a man find the edge of his own story and step past it. The judge nodded once, twice, as if he were lowering an invisible gavel. "By curial prerogative and market consensus," he said, speaking a sentence no one had written for him, "the corridor compact at Astor Gate is recognized as binding in this sector. Auric Guard will protect rescue lanes. The inquest is dissolved pending review." Tio, who had not breathed in 30 seconds, finally did. Una let her shoulders drop. Ibrahim laughed once, incredulous. The Tridax pilot thumped her hull against our tether in thanks. Across the commons, kettles dinged because kettles have good comic timing. We paid for our choice. First principles stayed dim while we towed the Tridax to a cradle. Una walked the ribs with a tablet and a hand, checking by touch because instruments lie after shock. Crew slept on coils, dreamless. We would need a skip-thread spool and plates that weren't stolen from our kitchen. We would need time. Time arrived on a freighter painted in 5 bright colors, then 2 more, then 20. Not a fleet with admirals, an armada with recipes. Human ships, yes, but also Arborian seed barges, gel ice dugs, a choir of Ithri medical skiffs. They brought us copper and thread and laughter and a flag sewn by children who had never seen Earth but had learned our old habit of helping anyway. Prefect Valan submitted to review in a hall with windows. Commodore Tulen accepted censure and a different collar, plain cloth, field gray. She would command the first guard wing tasked with lane protection. The inquest legate vanished into bureaucracy's deep ocean. Perhaps she would surface later, changed. Perhaps not. We signed the Kite Accords where the market had stood, 5 stripes painted on glass, wet and bright. The signatories included a judge, a prefect, a pilot with a singed crest, an elder with embroidered feathers, a nurse who could hum 2 keys at once, and a captain who still smelled like cold metal and burnt coffee. The compact's language was short on poetry and long on chores, pump maintenance, beacon protocols, jury selection, and escrow fund for tugs that burned themselves into the wall and needed gaskets. We held a quiet memorial for the pieces we'd lost. Plate F got its own plaque. The toddlers drew it broad and smiling. Una pretended to be offended and then secretly taped the drawing over her console. Wen wrote letters to the families of those who had practiced courage before we did, and to those who would have to practice it after. When our skip thread spool finally hummed and our plates shone like teeth again, we prepared to undock. The market had already stitched a corridor to the next troubled crescent and asked, shy, stubborn, if we would help thread it. We would. That is who we were becoming. T.O. sent one last message on the heat band, not in words but in long and short tides of warmth. Morse again, old as storms. If you need a door held, sing these 5 notes. Arrays across a dozen worlds recorded the pattern and tried it, unsure then sure. Where to? Ibrahim asked, mock formal. Wherever the map is quiet and the kitchen channel is loud, Maya said. Where a corridor is a rumor and someone tells us to sit down and shut up. Copy, Una said, smiling, setting course for rumor. When Liang stood at the viewport and let the market shrink, 5 colors becoming 5 bright threads. The habit holds, he whispered to no god in particular, and that was benediction enough. We did not conquer a sector. We taught it a song you can sing when radios fail. We declared a law you can carry in your hands. We left behind not fear nor obedience, but a scaffold anyone brave can climb. A corridor made of promises and panels and the beat of 1,000 hearts refusing to break in unison. When first principles slid into deeper dark, the 5 stripes winked once on our tail, blue, red, purple, yellow, white, and the market answered with 1,000 little lanterns. The galaxy is large and forgetful. We had given it something hard to forget. And somewhere far ahead, another ring flickered, a hospital beacon faltered, and a rumor about a corridor grew legs.